Is MAGA over? Well, with President Trump's attack on MTG over the last couple of days, a lot of people believe the split is just too deep. It's not going to recover. Let's talk about some of the causes of the split. It's not just this Epstein file thing, although that's a huge cause. There are lots of things afoot that are splitting up the Republican Party, and especially the subset of it, MAGA. What are those causes? Well, let's talk first about foreign policy. There are interventionists, and there are isolationists, supposedly. Actually, what I call them are American First and neocons. And so what do the neocons want? Well, they want endless wars. And what do endless wars depend on? Getting involved in more countries across the world with U.S. armed forces. And that's exactly what happened earlier this year with the bombing of Iran. Now, a lot of people believe it was justified. They think out of security we needed to do it. But a lot of people in MAGA say no, no more wars, no more killing American troops for another foreign power's interest. And there's a good argument on both sides, although I tend to fall on the isolationist side more than I do the interventionist on that particular topic. But the issue is it's splitting up the country and splitting it up bad. What's the other topic internationally that's causing problems for MAGA? Well, of course, that's Israel and Gaza. Let's talk about Gaza first. Well, Gaza, of course, has created all sorts of problems. And why? Well, because a lot of people perceive the Trump administration as giving Israel a blank check to do whatever it damn well pleases in Gaza, up to and including the slaughter of tens of thousands of people. Of course, who wouldn't want to do that after what happened to their country on October 7th? But there are all sorts of questions on the other side as well, such as, did Israel actually allow that to happen even though they had foreknowledge of the attack, just so that they would have national and international support for wiping out their enemies in Gaza? Well, whatever the case may be, there's a big split in MAGA over this whole thing, and it's a result of strong feelings on each side. You got the isolationists that say, hey, that's not our deal, that's Israel's deal. We need to stay out of it. American bombs should not be dropping on Gaza. We should not be supporting Israel and what it's doing there. Certainly not the bombing of Christian churches in Gaza. And of course, this has been fanned by people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and others that have talked about this on the right. And of course, people are very upset about it, and justly so. So how does that resolve? Nobody really knows. I mean, it looks like now that with Israel having the upper hand, that maybe Gaza will fade into the background. But this is a perpetual issue, and especially with the West Bank, Jerusalem, the mosque, the building of the Third Temple, no doubt that these are going to be highlights that continue to drive a wedge in MAGA. What are some of the other issues that are splitting us up? Well, antisemitism related to the Gaza thing, right? A lot of people blame the Trump administration for giving too much support to Israel or even being controlled by Israel. Again, that's something that Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and others have talked about and are very upset, particularly given what's been swept under the rug with respect to past excesses by Israel, such as the bombing, almost sinking of the USS Liberty, and of course the dancing Israelis when the Twin Towers fell. Now, whatever you feel about those issues, they are being discussed in MAGA, and they're creating major divisions in MAGA. Now, keep in mind, what is one of the major components of MAGA? Well, it's the religious right. Christians supported Trump probably more than any other subset of the American demographic. And of course, Christians, at least historically, Protestant Christians in the United States have been very, very strong Israel supporters. So this new split, it's something new. I mean, I grew up in an evangelical Christian household. My dad was a pastor, strongly pro-Israel. And I can tell you that nobody questioned Israel when I was a kid in the churches I went to. But now that's changing. And again, it's not just because of Gaza, it's because of these other factors. It's because there are mouthpieces that are saying, hey, we need to pay attention to the Israeli influence on the United States government. And if it doesn't align with American first policies, we shouldn't follow it. And then, of course, there's the question as to whether or not the Bible says that we're supposed to support Israel. Well, again, for a major component of MAGA, the evangelical right, the Bible is very important, and what it says regarding Israel is now under question, and there's a split in MAGA concerning that. So it's another thing that's tearing people apart. What else are we faced with now? Well, we have heroes of MAGA, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, who has now been attacked directly by President Trump. And why? Well, all the foregoing issues, plus now the Epstein emails. So the emails, let's talk about that before we focus on the personalities. The Epstein emails are a very, very big deal. Restoring Liberty, the website that we publish, has been hitting that issue ever since it became an issue. In fact, before. It is something that MAGA supporters feel very, very strongly about. The Epstein issue is a symbol of corruption. It's a symbol of perversion. It raises the question as to whether or not we're ruled by perverts. And frankly, everybody in MAGA wants those files released. There's hardly any segment of MAGA that is saying no. Only the just very hardcore blind Trump supporters are saying no. And the reason why is because President Trump himself campaigned on releasing all of the Epstein files. And I can tell you that there's no way he would have been elected had he not had that position. I would dare say that 25% of MAGA supporters probably voted for him over the Epstein and related issues. And so his failure to release those files is creating a major, major split in the movement. Now, when you marry that then to the attacks on individuals like MTG, and to a lesser extent with Congressman Massie, those two personalities that were, at least at one point in time, very strong contenders for second-in-command MAGA leadership, that creates a major division in the movement. And the more personalities that are attacked, I mean, even Rand Paul is one of the ones that could be classified as a leader in the MAGA movement, although he's been a bit outside of what you might regard to be the mainstream of MAGA. He still has followed through on MAGA principles. He is another one that the president has directly attacked. And so these personality attacks by the president on what he regards to be undisciplined or disobedient followers of MAGA is contributing to the split in the movement. Well, what else is there? Well, we've got the split of the big tech titans and the populist of MAGA. And you can look at Elon Musk. You can look at Peter Thiel as two of the big tech folk. I don't think they belong in the same basket, but they still are on the tech side of it, the big tech, big billionaire types that at least at one point in time followed and supported Trump. I think Peter Thiel still does. Elon Musk, to a certain extent, still does. But there's a big split between the tech titans and many of the populists within the MAGA movement. And what is that split caused by? Well, at least with Elon Musk, you have the support for the H-1B visas, the highly skilled to come into the United States, perhaps displace American jobs. The populists say, no, we want to keep the jobs here. We don't want to import these highly skilled people into the United States no matter what. We need to train our own. And look at Peter Thiel. Other than his support for J.D. Vance, he doesn't really reflect anything in the base of MAGA. And at least on social values, despite the fact that he's talking about the Antichrist in San Francisco on, I guess, a weekly or monthly basis, the fact of it is he does not reflect socially conservative values. And that, of course, is another thing that kind of grates against some of the base. And it makes people wonder, given his ownership of Palantir, the big tech surveillance group that a lot of people believe could be a forerunner to just incredible tyranny in this country. So you add that to his Antichrist teaching and his same-sex marriage, adopted kids, all the other stuff. It just doesn't fit very well with the MAGA base. So again, I'm not opining or moralizing on any of this. I'm just telling you that the split is deep and it's fractured in so many different directions. And my concern is that if this continues, there's not going to be any MAGA left. And there's other issues that are also at play. I mean, we have what's going on in the Caribbean with the hit of the drug ships, with the positioning of the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier outside of Venezuela. There's a lot of projection of American strength there that a lot of people believe is going to lead to conflict, the type of conflicts that they believe Trump would end. So there are big problems in that area. And then finally, I want to talk briefly about the DOJ. So under Kash Patel, there was a lot of hope that the FBI was going to be cleaned up. But instead, there's lots of questions about the FBI that are not answered. Recently, you probably heard about Tucker Carlson's expose on Thomas Crooks. I mean, here's the guy that supposedly shot Trump, that the FBI was saying there's absolutely no social media history on, and yet Tucker Carlson produces significant evidence of his social media footprint. And weirdly enough, Thomas Crooks used to be a Trump supporter, used to be hard right, and then suddenly did a 180 just a couple of years before he was involved in the shooting of the president. What was that all about? And who were the people that turned him, or why did he turn? There doesn't seem to be any evidence in the social media footprint that he left of that. And of course, people like Tucker are very interested in that, and also interested as to why the FBI has not been transparent about it. But it's not just the Thomas Crooks investigation and everything the FBI left out about him and his history there. It's also the Charlie Kirk investigation. Candace Owen has produced dozens of hours of commentary on why the investigation there appears to be shoddy, or at least why the official story just simply doesn't hold up. And what's coming out of the FBI? Nothing. And of course, they're going to attribute that to the fact that it's an active investigation with ongoing prosecution, with a trial that's upcoming. I get all that. But the point is, why even then give a narrative as to what happened? If you're going to stay out of it, don't say anything at all. Just say, hey, we arrested the guy that we think who did it, instead of adding all the other stuff that doesn't make sense. Again, lots of questions about the DOJ and the FBI and about whether under Trump they've really become an agency for the people or whether it's just more of the same. And then you've got the so-called white nationalist split. Now, I don't want to fall into the verbiage that, the establishment has put into this. I mean, they're trying to create division and trying to create labels that aren't there. But there's no question that Nick Fuentes is out there spewing garbage I've listened to enough of it that I can tell you a lot of what he says is garbage. Now, of course, he's speaking a populist language that is resonating with some, and because of that, that's dangerous. But the stuff coming out of his mouth does create divisions, and we have to acknowledge that. And the split is tangible. I mean, we saw what happened with the Heritage Foundation. Of course, that kind of arose secondarily out of the Nick Fuentes interview that Tucker Carlson did. And even, that guilt by association reflects how vitriolic this particular split is and what it could actually do in the long run to the MAGA movement. There is even a split in judicial philosophy. The Federalist Society for years has been kind of the centerpiece of conservative thought on how the judiciary ought to operate. But within MAGA, there has been an increasing perspective that what we have to do with these wayward judges is just simply defy them. Just say, hell no, not follow what they do. If there's an unconstitutional order given, the executive has co-equal authority to just simply reject those dictates and not do what the judiciary tells it to do. Of course, that's not the Federalist Society's perspective, and that alone is creating a division that is also having impact on the cohesiveness of the movement. So what's the danger here? Well, the danger is we lose power over government. Right now, the people have some power over government, but if our movement splits, as it looks like it is, then it's an open pathway for chaos, and that chaos is going to result in democratic power. And why is that? Because we're splitting up the conservative movement. So what do? Well, we got to work and pray that we don't fall apart. And I can tell you that it all starts at the top. President Trump's going to have to take a step back, and there's going to have to be a realignment. If there is not, we're going to end up with a terrible outcome of this Trump administration that we will probably never, ever recover from. This is probably Trump's biggest challenge. I mean, who knows what else is out there in those Epstein files? But he needs to release them. That's the first step. But secondly, he's going to have to eat a little bit of crow, get some people back on his side, and create the new movement again so that we can work our way through all of this and rescue America.